The forest was quiet, but not peaceful. Strange glowing plants stretched high into the sky, their soft light casting long, uneven shadows on the ground. Every so often, a faint rustle of leaves or the distant hum of an alien insect broke the silence. Joran, a human explorer, walked carefully along the twisting path, his boots crunching on the glowing moss. He had traveled to many planets before, but this one felt different. There was a weight in the air, a strange emptiness that made him uneasy. Then he heard it, a soft, pitiful sound that made him stop. At first, he thought it was the wind, but the cry was steady, small, and rhythmic. It was a sound filled with confusion and loneliness. Joran's heart tightened. He followed the noise, stepping over roots and ducking under hanging vines, until he came to a clearing. There, in the center, lay a nest. It was enormous, made of twisted branches and strange, sparkling fibers that shimmered in the dim light. But what caught Joran's attention were the three tiny shapes huddled inside. They were dragons, small and fragile, with scales that reflected the glow of the forest in dull, faded colors. Their wings were too small to fly, their eyes wide with fear. They shivered as they pressed together, each one trying to stay warm, each one seeking the comfort that was no longer there. Joran knelt slowly beside them, careful not to make sudden movements. The dragons looked up at him with eyes that seemed far older than their tiny bodies suggested. There was no trust there, only fear and a quiet longing. They had no mother, no father, no one to comfort them. Their cries had gone unanswered for who knew how long. The silence of the forest seemed to echo their pain, making it sharper, heavier. Joran could feel it pressing on him, a weight of grief and loneliness that was almost too much to bear. He reached out a hand, trembling slightly, and the smallest dragon flinched. The middle one hissed softly, a weak attempt to scare him away. The largest, though still tiny, tilted its head and watched him carefully. Joran did not move his hand. He simply spoke in a soft voice, a low hum that vibrated with calm. "It's okay. I'm here." The dragons did not respond at first. They only blinked, their small chests rising and falling with anxious breaths. Joran looked closer and noticed a small, broken crystal shard lying near the edge of the nest. It was faintly glowing, but damaged, its surface cracked. He picked it up gently, brushing off the dirt and dust. A faint hum filled the air, almost like a memory trying to speak. He held it closer to the dragons, and for a brief moment, he thought he saw a flicker of recognition in their eyes. They had someone once, Joran whispered. Someone who sang to them. He did not know what the shard had stored, but he could feel it. The sadness of the dragons pressed against his chest, a weight he had never felt before. The idea that they had been left completely alone, abandoned in this strange alien forest, made his throat tight. One of the dragons, the smallest, took a hesitant step toward him. Its movements were awkward, as though it had forgotten how to walk. Joran smiled gently. "It's all right," he said. "You don't have to be afraid. I won't hurt you." The dragon froze, then took another step, its tiny claws making soft clicks on the branches. The other two watched, their heads tilting as they measured him. Joran stayed very still, letting them come to him on their own terms. The wind shifted, blowing softly through the clearing. The leaves and vines rustled, and for a moment, the three dragons trembled as if expecting danger from every shadow. Joran stayed on his knees, letting his presence be steady and safe. "I don't know where your parents are," he admitted softly. "I don't know why no one has come for you. But I can help. I can stay with you." A small sound, almost like a hiccup, came from the largest dragon. Joran tilted his head and realized it was a faint attempt at a cry, but softer, calmer, almost like it was testing him. He nodded slowly. "Yes, I'm here. You're not alone anymore." Time seemed to slow. The three dragons shifted slightly closer, their tiny bodies trembling. Joran kept speaking in quiet tones, humming a melody that he remembered from his own childhood, a tune simple enough for anyone to follow. He did not know if they understood, but the sound seemed to reach them. The smallest dragon crawled onto his hand, its tiny claws brushing his skin. The others leaned closer, and soon they were all huddled near him, seeking warmth and comfort. Joran looked at the broken crystal shard again. Its glow pulsed faintly, almost in rhythm with the dragon's small heartbeats. He realized then that these creatures had once known love and care, and now that memory was fading. But perhaps he could replace it, even in the smallest way. Perhaps he could give them something to hold on to, something to remember him by. The forest around them remained silent, watching, waiting. The alien plants glowed softly, casting a gentle light over the nest. For the first time since he had arrived, Joran felt a quiet hope. These dragons were tiny, fragile, and alone, but they were alive. And he was here. As the night deepened, the three dragons gradually settled, their trembling slowing. Joran continued to hum softly, letting the melody fill the clearing. The glow of the crystal shard seemed brighter now, as if responding to the sound, and for a brief moment, the forest itself seemed to hold its breath. The dragons, tiny and orphaned, had found a human who would not turn away. And for the first time since they were born, they did not feel completely alone. Joran stayed beside the nest long after the dragons had finally quieted. Their tiny bodies curled together, but he knew their minds were restless. Even asleep, they twitched and murmured softly, as if remembering something they could not name. Joran looked at the broken crystal shard he had found earlier. Its glow was faint but steady, and he could feel a faint energy vibrating from it. Something told him this shard held more than just light, it held memory, history, something important that the dragons themselves had lost. Carefully, he picked up the shard and held it near the dragons. The largest one stirred, opening its eyes to look at him. They were wide and uncertain, but not afraid. Joran whispered softly, "I think this belonged to your parents, or maybe someone who cared for you before." He could not explain why he felt it, but the shard seemed alive, humming faintly as he moved it. The middle dragon reached out a tiny claw and touched the shard. Immediately, a faint projection appeared, glowing like a soft mist above the crystal. Joran's breath caught. It was a faint memory, a song of sorts, but broken. The colors were pale, shifting like clouds, and the sounds were almost gone, a lullaby from a parent to their children. The melody was sweet but incomplete, fading and stuttering as though someone had forgotten the notes. Joran knelt closer, studying the projection. "This is what you remember," he said softly. "Or maybe what you were meant to remember. It's beautiful, even if it's broken." The smallest dragon crawled toward him, pressing its tiny head against his hand. It chirped softly, as if responding to the memory. The other two leaned in as well, their eyes focused on the glowing mist. He realized that the dragons had been left without anyone to teach them, without anyone to guide them through life. They had no one to comfort them in the nights, no one to sing to them when they were afraid. The shard was their last connection to the past, but even it was fading. Joran felt a tightness in his chest. He could not imagine being so young and so completely alone. "I won't let you be alone," he whispered. "I don't know how to fix everything, but I can give you something new." He closed his eyes for a moment and tried to remember the songs he had learned as a child on Earth. Simple tunes, easy to hum, gentle enough to soothe anyone. He began humming one quietly, letting the melody drift across the clearing. The dragon's ears twitched. The middle dragon lifted its head, tilting it as if listening carefully. The smallest curled closer to Joran, and the largest opened its mouth slightly, letting out a faint, musical chirp that seemed to try and match his tone. Joran smiled softly. "Good. That's good. You can try it with me. It doesn't have to be perfect." He hummed again, slowly, gently, making sure the sound was steady and soft. The dragon's tiny voices joined in, weak at first, uncertain, but growing more confident with each note. Joran could see it in their eyes, they were learning, and for the first time, they understood that there was someone who cared. Hours passed, though Joran did not notice. The forest around them seemed to fade away, leaving only the nest, the dragons, and the song. The crystal shard glowed brighter, as if it was responding to the music. The memory projection flickered, clearer this time, but still incomplete. Joran realized that the shard was feeding on the new sounds, the new melody he was creating. It was beginning to record something different, something alive again. "This will be your new memory," Joran whispered, his hand brushing over the middle dragon's tiny head. "A song to remember, to keep you safe. You don't have to grieve for the past anymore." The dragons leaned against him, small and fragile, but trusting. Joran could feel the warmth of their tiny bodies, their rapid little heartbeats. It was a bond forming slowly, one that no one else could break. He stayed with them as the night deepened, letting his humming fill the clearing. The dragons shifted closer, tiny claws brushing his arms, soft wings fluttering against his legs. The shard continued to glow, its light pulsing with the rhythm of the song. Joran realized that this melody, simple and human, could be stronger than the memory of what they had lost. It could give them hope, safety, and love. By the time the first light of the alien morning touched the clearing, the dragons were calmer. Their eyes were still wide, still cautious, but they no longer trembled. The smallest yawned, curling against Joran's chest as if it had slept for the first time in weeks. The middle dragon chirped softly, almost humming along with him, and the largest gave a tiny flap of its wings, testing the air carefully. Joran looked down at the shard one last time. Its glow was steady, brighter now, as though it had accepted the new song. "This is just the beginning," he said softly. "I don't know everything about you, and I don't know everything about your past. But we can make something new together." The dragons blinked up at him, their eyes reflecting the first true trust he had ever seen. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath, waiting. The empty nest was no longer silent, filled now with a soft, tentative melody. And for the first time, the three tiny dragons felt that maybe, just maybe, they were not alone anymore. Joran stayed there, humming quietly, letting the music bind him to them, letting the memory of the past fade just enough to make space for something brighter. The orphaned dragons, fragile and small, had found a new beginning, carried on the simple tune of a human who refused to leave them behind. Joran stayed with the dragons through the morning, watching them carefully as they stirred in the nest. The smallest one tried to stretch its wings, trembling as the movement made its tiny body wobble. The middle dragon crawled over the largest, soft scales brushing together in a comforting rhythm. Joran realized that they were learning to trust him, but only slowly. They had been alone for so long that any sudden movement or loud sound made them flinch. He sat down in the center of the nest, letting the dragons gather around him. "I know you're scared," he said softly. "I can't bring your parents back, but I can give you something else. Something that will stay with you." The dragons blinked, tilting their heads as if they understood him. The middle one gave a tiny chirp, testing his reaction. Joran smiled and gently hummed a simple melody he remembered from childhood. It was a tune he had sung to himself when he was lonely, soft and calm, with a rhythm that could soothe anyone. The dragons paused, listening carefully. Their tiny ears twitched, and one by one, they began to move closer. The smallest crawled onto his lap, trembling at first but soon relaxing as the melody wrapped around it like a warm blanket. The other two leaned against him, wings brushing his arms, eyes wide and curious. Joran continued to hum, letting his voice rise and fall slowly, softly. He added small pauses between the notes, letting the dragons' chirps join in. At first, their sounds were weak and uneven, like a baby learning its first words, but Joran encouraged them gently. "Yes, that's it," he whispered. "You're learning. We can do it together." The smallest dragon let out a faint trill, matching the first few notes of his tune. Joran's heart lifted. He repeated the melody, slowing it down, letting them follow. The middle dragon added its own sound, a soft hum that harmonized imperfectly but beautifully. The largest flapped its tiny wings in excitement, letting out a sound that made the other two pause, then imitate. Soon, the clearing was filled with a mixture of human humming and dragon chirps, a strange, gentle song that belonged to all of them. Joran's eyes glimmered as he watched the dragons. Each note, each trill, each little chirp was a bridge between them. The melody was no longer just his, it belonged to them too. The shard in the nest pulsed faintly, its glow stronger than before. The dragons seemed to sense it, tilting their heads toward it as if they could feel the memory within it waking slightly. Joran realized that the song was helping them remember not their grief, but safety and comfort. He reached out and brushed a hand across the smallest dragon's head. It purred softly, a sound like a vibrating hum, and closed its eyes. The middle dragon let out a small trill in response, and the largest curled closer to them both, trembling in a different way now, not from fear, but from emotion. Joran's humming slowed, letting silence fill the spaces between the notes, giving the dragons time to respond. For the first time, they were not crying. They were not trembling with loneliness. They were learning to create something new together, a song of their own, guided by the human who had refused to abandon them. Joran smiled, softly laughing at the strange, delicate music that filled the clearing. "See," he whispered. "We can make something beautiful, even when everything else is gone." The dragons began experimenting with their sounds more boldly. The smallest made tiny trills in quick succession, and Joran copied the rhythm. The middle dragon added a long, soft note, which Joran matched with a hum. The largest gave a short, sharp chirp, making all three dragons pause and then laugh, or what sounded like laughter in dragon language. Joran laughed with them, and the sound seemed to strengthen the bond. Time passed quickly. The sun climbed higher, and the forest glowed brighter, but the dragons remained close to Joran. They were learning that sound could be more than a warning or a cry. It could be comfort, expression, and connection. Joran noticed the shard pulsing in rhythm with their combined melody. It was as if it had awakened, responding to the song they were creating together. Joran leaned back slightly, letting the dragons settle around him. "We don't have to be afraid anymore," he said softly. "You have me. And we have each other. That's enough for now. The smallest dragon snuggled into his chest, closing its eyes completely, trusting him fully for the first time. The middle dragon rested its head on his arm, its little hums blending perfectly with his own. The largest flapped its wings gently, making small sounds that matched the rising and falling melody of the song. The clearing felt alive with music. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying the melody softly across the forest. Joran realized that the song was more than a lullaby, it was a promise. A promise that they would not be alone, that someone cared enough to give them comfort, that life could still hold warmth and hope even after loss. By the time the stars began to appear in the alien sky, the dragons were calm, relaxed, and attentive. They chirped softly along with him, creating a harmony that filled the nest with light and energy. Joran felt a deep joy in his chest. For the first time, the orphaned dragons had found something stronger than grief. They had found a song of safety, of trust, of new beginnings, made by a human who refused to turn away. As the night deepened, Joran hummed quietly, letting the melody echo through the forest. The dragons closed their eyes, their tiny bodies pressed close to his, breathing in rhythm with him. The shard pulsed once, brightly, and then dimmed, holding the memory of the song they were creating together. It was no longer just his song. It was theirs too. In that quiet nest, surrounded by glowing plants and soft shadows, Joran understood something important. Music could heal. Music could teach. Music could connect species, even when words and time failed. And with a simple human song, 3 tiny dragons who had no one to grieve for them could begin to feel hope again, safe in the arms of someone who truly cared. Joran woke early in the alien forest, the soft glow of plants bathing the clearing in green light. The 3 dragons were already awake, small bodies stretching and flapping wings, testing their strength. The smallest yawned and blinked, looking around until its eyes found Joran. It chirped softly, a sound that carried curiosity and trust. Joran smiled and gently lifted it into his arms. "Good morning," he whispered. "Ready to start the day?" The dragons chirped and hummed in response, each making different sounds that blended into a soft harmony. Joran listened carefully, realizing that the song they had been learning together was changing. They were adding their own notes, small variations that made the melody richer and more alive. It was no longer just his song. It was theirs too, growing stronger with every sound. He decided to make the clearing more comfortable for them. Using fallen branches and glowing fibers from the forest, he built a small shelter around the nest. It was simple, but it gave them shade from the rising sun and protection from the cooler night air. The dragons explored it carefully, stepping around the edges, sniffing and chirping softly. They flinched only occasionally, learning that this new home was safe. Joran sat in the center of the nest, humming the melody again. The dragons responded immediately, their tiny voices adding harmonies that blended beautifully. The smallest climbed onto his shoulder, letting out a soft trill as it tried to match his pitch. The middle dragon flapped its wings gently and made a low hum, complementing the tune. The largest tilted its head, chirping short notes between his hums. Together, they created a song that filled the clearing, a melody of trust and comfort. Joran watched them closely, realizing how fast they were learning. Each day, the dragons added new sounds and rhythms, creating patterns that he could barely anticipate. The melody became a shared language, a connection that needed no words. He smiled as the smallest dragon attempted a higher note, its voice trembling but clear. "Yes. That's perfect," he said. "You're learning so fast. We're a team now." The dragons chirped in agreement, tiny wings flapping in excitement. The middle one climbed onto his lap, pressing close, while the largest nestled beside them, its eyes half closed but alert. Joran hummed a new section of the song, one he had made up on the spot, and the dragons responded immediately. They repeated it, added a trill here, a chirp there, and suddenly the simple melody had grown into something rich and complex, something entirely theirs. As the day passed, Joran took short breaks to gather food and water. Each time he left, the dragons sang softly to themselves, humming the melody in a pattern that reminded him of a lullaby. When he returned, the song grew louder, more joyful, as if they were welcoming him back. He laughed softly, amazed at how quickly they had adapted. The song was not only teaching them trust but giving them confidence, showing them that they could survive and grow even in the absence of their parents. By midday, Joran decided to try something new. He guided the dragons to the edges of the clearing, encouraging them to stretch their wings and practice small glides. The smallest struggled at first, wings flapping too fast, body wobbling. Joran hummed the melody slowly, letting the rhythm guide them. "Follow the song," he whispered. "It will help you." The dragons chirped and hummed, moving in time with the tune. Step by step, wing by wing, they learned to balance and glide short distances. The middle dragon followed the rhythm more confidently, wings steady, chirping a low note each time it landed. The largest, hesitant at first, flapped in small bursts, adding short trills to the melody as it moved. Joran clapped softly and hummed encouragement, proud of their progress. "Yes. That's it. You're doing amazing," he said. The dragons responded with louder, more confident sounds, their song growing richer and more intricate. As evening approached, the forest glowed with a soft, golden light. Joran returned the dragons to the nest, letting them settle around him. They chirped softly, creating a gentle harmony that echoed through the clearing. The shard glowed faintly beside them, as if recording the new melody they had created together. Joran realized that this song was more than music, it was a bond, a connection that would stay with them forever. The dragons were no longer just small, abandoned creatures. They were learners, partners, and friends. Each note they added was a sign of trust, each trill a declaration that they believed in him. Joran hummed the final part of the melody softly, letting the sound fade into the quiet of the alien forest. The dragons settled around him, tiny bodies warm and safe, breathing in rhythm with the song. That night, Joran lay among them, humming quietly as they drifted to sleep. The forest around them was still, but now it was a comforting silence, filled with the memory of their song. The dragons had discovered something new, something more important than the memory of their parents or the fear of being alone. They had found connection, friendship, and hope, all carried in the simple, human-made melody that bound them together. Joran closed his eyes and whispered softly, "We made this together. This song is ours now. You'll never be alone again." The dragons twitched slightly, tiny chirps sounding almost like agreement. For the first time, they were not only safe but happy, a small family bound by music, trust, and the care of someone who refused to turn away. The song echoed gently through the clearing, a soft promise that even in a lonely, alien world, love and connection could be found, and that a simple melody could create a bond stronger than fear, loss, or loneliness. In the middle of the glowing forest, 3 tiny dragons and a human had found each other, and in their song, a new beginning. The morning sun spread soft light across the glowing alien forest. Joran stirred in the nest, careful not to wake the 3 dragons, but they were already awake, tiny bodies stretching and wings twitching. The smallest chirped softly and crawled onto his shoulder, while the middle and largest shifted closer to him. Joran smiled, feeling warmth in his chest. They had grown stronger, braver, and more confident in the past days. He picked up the shard that had first revealed the faint memory of their parents' lullaby. It glowed softly, as if recording everything that had happened since. The dragons leaned toward it, humming gently in response. Joran realized that they were learning not just to trust him, but to trust themselves. They were becoming a little family, bound together by music and care. "I think it's time," he whispered softly. "You're ready to see more of the world." The dragons chirped, tilting their heads in curiosity. Joran stood carefully, letting the smallest hop onto his shoulder. The other 2 flapped their wings experimentally, then leaped lightly beside him. They had learned to glide short distances, but now it was time to try more. Joran led them to a small clearing near a stream. The water shimmered in colors he had never seen before, reflecting the alien sky above. "This is a safe place," he said. "You can practice flying here." He hummed the melody they had learned together, slow and steady, letting the rhythm guide them. The dragons flapped, chirped, and hummed along, their song echoing across the clearing. The smallest dragon struggled at first, wings trembling. Joran hummed a softer note, steady and encouraging, and the tiny dragon adjusted its movements, flapping in time with him. The middle dragon followed naturally, confident and eager, while the largest took small hops into the air, letting its wings carry it a few meters at a time. Each movement was accompanied by their soft harmonies, a melody that now belonged to all of them. Hours passed, and the dragons grew stronger. They glided longer, chirped more confidently, and even experimented with new sounds. Joran laughed quietly, clapping softly as the smallest performed a successful glide. "Yes. That's it. You're doing amazing." The dragons responded with louder, joyful chirps, blending with his hum in a rich, lively song. By evening, Joran realized something remarkable. The dragons had created patterns in the air as they flew. Their scales reflected the glow of the forest, leaving trails of light that shimmered like ribbons. Each flap of their wings added color to the melody, and every chirp became part of a visual dance. The forest itself seemed to notice, shadows moving gently, glowing plants leaning closer, as if the entire world welcomed this new family. Joran sat in the nest again, the dragons settling around him. He hummed quietly, letting the song echo through the clearing. The shard pulsed softly, recording the music, glowing brighter as if pleased with what they had created. He realized that this song, born from loneliness and fear, had become something more. It was hope, trust, and joy all combined, a living symbol of their bond. The dragons chirped softly, tiny wings brushing against him. The smallest snuggled into his chest, eyes half closed, completely trusting. The middle rested its head on his arm, humming in harmony with him, while the largest leaned beside them, flapping wings softly in time with the melody. Together, they had created a rhythm, a connection that went beyond words. Night fell, painting the sky with stars. Joran looked up, then at the dragons around him, feeling pride and love. They had survived the loss of their parents, learned to trust, and grown stronger in ways that no one could have predicted. The melody they had built together would stay with them, a permanent reminder that even in a vast, lonely galaxy, connection could be found. "I think we're ready to leave the nest now," Joran said softly. The dragons chirped in response, eyes bright with excitement and curiosity. He helped the smallest onto his shoulder, and the other two followed his lead, ready to explore the forest together. As they glided and hopped through the trees, their song echoed across the clearing, blending with the alien sounds of the world around them. They moved farther, discovering new areas filled with glowing plants, strange streams, and soft hills. The dragons experimented with new sounds, creating variations of their melody that Joran hummed along with. Each day, the song grew richer, stronger, and more beautiful. It was no longer just a human melody or a dragon hum, it was a living bond, a testament to what they had built together. Joran realized that the dragons no longer thought of themselves as abandoned. They had a family now, a human who cared, and a shared song that reminded them of safety, love, and hope. The forest, which once seemed lonely and empty, was now full of life, sound, and movement. The dragons glowed with happiness, reflecting the light of the alien sky in their scales. As they rested that night, the dragons curled close to Joran, chirping softly in harmony with his hum. The shard pulsed beside them, recording the new memories they had created together. Joran smiled and whispered, "We're a family now. No matter where we go, we'll always have each other." The dragons twitched, tiny trills sounding almost like agreement, their song a promise that would carry across the galaxy. In the heart of the alien forest, a human and 3 dragons had found something rare and beautiful. They had lost their past, but together they had built a future. With music as their bond, trust as their guide, and love as their anchor, they were ready to face the galaxy as one. And so, in a strange world, a new family began its journey, carrying a song of hope, courage, and togetherness wherever they went.